The Rio Grande engine has a slightly smaller motor called a prime mover in railroading. That's a V16, but still a 645 cubic inch per cylinder motor. Produces a lot of heat. There's 305 gallons of cooling water that circulate through that system. If that cooling water gets above a certain temperature, usually around 180 degrees, a safety device on the engine begins to derate the power output. So the Rio Grande engine's 3,000 horsepower. The SP engine, being a little bit bigger, is 3,600 horsepower. But right when you need that power the most, going up a steep grade over Donner Pass, it starts to derate down to 3,200, 2,800 horsepower. Trains would stall in the tunnels. One engineer, I remember this from my high school days, back in the early 70s, a train stalled in Tunnel 41 at the summit of Donner Pass with a bunch of these ST-45s. The engineer had no radio reception inside this 2-mile-long tunnel and had to open the doors and get out and hike out to get help. The heat singed all the hair off his head. Now that, you can see, this was an issue. So in 1971, Southern Pacific went to General Motors and said, look, we love your locomotives, but we have a problem. And General Motors developed a completely re-engineered the locomotive so that the radiator intake was down along the catwalk and it would suck in colder air from the bottom of the tunnels, thus eliminating the overheating problem in the tunnels and snow sheds. So Southern Pacific began to buy those engines in 1972. Well, there was one other railroad in the West that had a lot of high-altitude tunnels and snow sheds, and that was the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad, both in Utah and more particularly in Colorado. Brief break while Frontrunner goes by. So the Rio Grande was the only other railroad to pay the extra, I think it was $85,000 per engine to get that modification on your order. Now that's when the engines cost $300,000 to $400,000 a piece. It's a long time ago. Modern day freight locomotive is in the $2.8 to $3 million per engine cost. Remember that when you're driving 84 up Weber Canyon, you see 4 or 5 up on the double stack train, you're seeing a lot of money going by, and that's money the railroads have to finance on their own. There is no government program to help pay for all the equipment the railroads use. So the Rio Grande ordered these tunnel motor engines for 2 reasons. They would handle priority freight trains between Ogden, Salt Lake, and the Colorado Front Range, and they would handle unit trains of coal from Colorado and Utah mines going to power plants throughout the West and Midwest. So we have this particular engine here. As was already stated, it is very significant to the state of Utah and to Utah's railroaders. And so it's something to add to the other engines that we have. Another 15 years, we might go after an MP36 from Frontrunner as well. We'll just have to see on that. One final thing I'd like to do, though, and I hope this gives you a little bit of an idea of the significance of the engine. How many of you here today have or currently work in the railroad industry? Just by a show of hands. Okay, let's give those folks a hand, all right? It's an industry that doesn't get thought about anymore, but remember one thing. The railroads are still the most efficient way to move people or freight over land devised. It's 3 to 4 times less fuel consumed to move freight on a railroad than, say, on the highway. It's over 60 times more fuel efficient to move people by train than by air. And that's something that we need to think about in this modern era in the United States and in the world with greenhouse gases and things like that. And the railroads are all privately built, privately maintained. They don't have the benefit of an infrastructure fund as other modes of transportation oftentimes do. So we owe a real debt to the railroad industry, not only for what it made Ogden and continues to serve Ogden, albeit not to the degree it did in World War II, but to helping keep the United States the mobile society that it is. With that, I'll head you all off into the sunset and turn it back to Roberta. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. I'm telling, was I right? Yeah. Jacob really knows his facts. He's a good guy. There's really no more to the program here except to enjoy the locomotive and explore it. We do have one final act to do the final dedication of this before we turn you loose on that. We've got our golden spikers here to do a formal dedication of the locomotive, and the key, Mr. Dan Harbeck from Union Pacific Railroad, the key will be handed over to me. To me. Prior to me, and he was instrumental in getting all of this display here, so it's fitting that he's here to receive the keys with Dan. Thank you.
Dan, good over there.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Harbeck, and as you heard, I serve as Director of Public Affairs with Union Pacific Railroad here in Utah, as well as Idaho and Montana. It's a real treat for us to be here doing this today, and I know we have a few retirees and a few Union Pacific Railroad employees with us, but we have 1,400 employees here in the state of Utah. Employees of Union Pacific Railroad who are committed, as Dan mentioned earlier, to moving the freight of this nation. And it's that commitment that we're here to honor today with the Ogden Union Station, the City of Ogden, and all those folks who are involved with this. It's that commitment to history and the history of freight railroad in Utah that we're here to honor today. And so with that, I'm so pleased to take the keys for locomotive number 5371 and turn it over.
If only my backyard were big enough. Well, thank you very much, and our thanks again to Union Pacific. You know, for years as a railroad official, people would run into me on the train. They'd say, "Oh, we bet you have a lot of model trains at home." I'd say, "No, I play with the big ones." I guess this proves it. Thank you. Until 3.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah. She needs a ribbon. It's like graduation. Now we need pomp and circumstance, and you look like you're a graduate of something. Hey.